They've been called nature's water towers. And what are they? The forest slopes of the catchment areas of the river basins, our watersheds. We spend billions of dollars every year conserving and cleansing water, but watersheds just do it for nothing. Worse still, if you chop down the trees, as countries such as China have discovered at their cost of thousands of lives, you get flooding and mudslides. So you've guessed it. This week we scoured the world to find places where sanity prevails and markets are being created to reward people and communities in the front line of conservation.
New York, where 1.5 billion gallons of water are delivered daily to its 8 million citizens. Most of the water comes from the Catskills Watershed, 100 miles northwest of Manhattan, in the Catskill Mountains that fringe the upper Hudson Valley. This pristine supply has a reputation as the champagne of drinking waters, regularly beating bottled waters in blind tests. But in the 1990s, this pristine water source was threatened by pollution caused by developers, tourism, and intensive farming close to the watershed. Albert Appleton was New York's Commissioner of Environmental Protection and Director of the city's water and sewage system between 1990 and 1993. He needed an urgent solution.
There was a general feeling that the city was failing to protect the quality of its water. So the city had two choices. One, to build an enormous filtration works at a cost of billions of dollars, because that works would have had to process over 1.5 billion gallons of water a day, or do something about watershed protection. That pollution prevention was better than pollution cleanup.
At an estimated $6 billion a time, a filtration plant would have meant rocketing water and sewage rates for New York taxpayers. Appleton reckoned the cheapest, most eco-friendly option was to make Catskills farmers stewards of the watershed.
The city drafted a whole set of new regulations pertaining to agriculture. The farm community in the Catskills was extremely concerned that those new restrictions on farming would basically put them out of business.
Farmers don't need to go to Las Vegas or any place else to hit the casinos, because they're doing it every day out here with the livestock and the crops and all the rest of it.
After months of negotiation, they agreed an incentive-based way to protect drinking water from agricultural pollution. Today, 95% of Catskill farmers help keep the watershed healthy.
The primary concern is getting to know the farmer and seeing what some of the problems are on his farm and what his concerns are. And from there, we start building an environmental plan, a whole farm plan.
Pollution from livestock has long been a problem. If sick cows wander through streams trailing farmyard dirt and manure, water sources are at risk. Young dairy calves are particularly vulnerable to pathogens and must be carefully monitored. Under the whole farm plan, Tom Hudson had help buying a special solar roof calf shed. It meant Tom could separate calves from cows and house them in a well-ventilated, well-lit environment.
And the other thing we would have Tom do is also, while he's taking a temperature, is to body condition score his animal, check her coat, definitely check the rear of the animal to make sure there's no signs of scouring. Obviously a dirty rear means scouring. Most of our pathogens are actually transferred via the manure.
You can break the cycle of the pathogens easily, and we separate the calf manure. That's handled in a different manner than the mature cattle manure is. So we can deal with it. We can isolate things.
Labs at the Ashokan Reservoir oversee rigorous quality control of the Catskills Watershed. From here, the water takes 24 hours to reach Manhattan. Tests for turbidity, chemicals, algae and bacteria are conducted daily on water samples taken from different reservoir points and from rivers and tributaries.
It's one large reservoir in two basins. Fairly often the water quality will be a little better in one basin than the other. Sometimes the turbidity is higher, so these are all considerations that are being made to which is the best quality water they can deliver down the aqueduct.
In New York, An inspector does her rounds of sampling stations scattered across the city, making sure there's no loss in water quality.
I just pick up the samples and I'll do the quality control out in the field. If I detect something out of range or something like that, then I'll notify my supervisor by radio. It doesn't really happen, very seldom. And we test every day, 7 days a week, holidays including.
What we did is we stopped the bad trends. In fact, we improved the Catskill environment in many ways through stream corridor protection, through cleaning up local septics, through upgrading local sewage treatment plants, through changing all these farm practices. The Catskill environment is now much better than it was 10 years ago. And thus, these trends have not only been stopped, but reversed, and we have protected the champagne of drinking water for the future.
Environmental scientist Fritz Becker has a major challenge. Tracking problems from source to supply of the sorely depleted Salati River in the Limpopo province of South Africa. It's a 140-kilometre stretch of water running east from the Volkberg Mountains in the Drakensberg mountain chain to Kruger National Park. His initial research is supported by the International Institute for Environment and Development, IIED. It involves Fritz meeting the many users along the river's course to find out what kind of watershed protection scheme would work best for both farmers, rich and poor, and the fragile environment. Freddie Petche manages an avocado farm, and he's inherited an antiquated, inefficient irrigation system.
The system is not so good.
And the crop wasn't good this year?
That's not very good, yes.
Yeah, because with the sprinklers, as it is in this way, you're irrigating all the weeds between the trees, and very little water is actually falling at the root where the water is needed.
Yes.
On another part of the land, another wasteful system, flood irrigation, used to divert water from a tributary of the Salati and flood the roots of the avocados.
The last good crop we had was in 2000, 2001. All the other years, the crop was just average because of the water, really. Too much water on the trees is not good. You must use enough for yourself and leave the other one to flow down to the other people.
Leaky irrigation pipes don't help.
Percent of all the flow in the upper reaches of the Salati River is taken away by this irrigation channel, and the rocks should actually be covered with water for the aquatic invertebrates to add onto the rocks. So the impact on the aquatic ecosystems are quite significant.
Fritz's next stop is Vera Voller's farm.
Okay.
The 40-acre spread also relies on the Salati River to irrigate mangoes and tomatoes. A channel built by Indian Army officers in the 1920s carries water 500 metres from the Macheki Springs to the farm reservoir.
It completely destroys what this is supposed to do, because this is a sponge area that is supposed to feed the river during dry flow conditions. And by putting in that channel, you negate everything that this stands for. At the moment, all the water is being used for irrigation practices, and I would like to see with this project, if possible, to conserve this water and take it back and put it back into the system.
Certainly all along the river course, I think we've got vast areas where we can save, particularly using high-tech irrigation systems. Only sort of 25% of our total water goes through, say, a dripper irrigation system, as opposed to either dragline or flood irrigation, which is obviously very wasteful of water.
One solution is drip irrigation, which reduces water loss significantly. Water is piped through tiny holes aimed directly at the roots where it's needed. Repairing broken pipes and lining irrigation channels also helps save precious water.
By lining the channel with plastic, it will result in a significant saving of water in the system. The ultimate is to put in a pipeline, but this is a reasonable alternative.
Fritz has called a meeting of big landowners from the area, hunters and farmers, young and old, to explain the project and air grievances about individual water problems.
We or lower down the river, we're not using the water. We are not misusing the water, we don't know about the water.
I disagree with my farmer lower down. We're at the top, so we want to be spoken to about this.
I think we should face the fact that it will take money as an incentive to rectify the situation.
It is so important from my side as a farmer that if I get more water, I'll employ more. So people will get food and my farming project will be sustainable.
I think it was a very fruitful meeting in that we managed to get all the important role players in this section of the catchment together. I think the project will be much more feasible if we get the two government departments on board as soon as possible, and that is the Department of Water Affairs and the Department of Environmental Affairs.
At the confluence of the Salati and the bigger Olifants River, in the lower reaches of the water catchment, is a cluster of mineral mines, luxury sports facilities and the Kruger Game Reserve. All of them depend on a healthy river system. This time, Fritz's audience are environmentalists from a phosphorus and copper mine and a representative from the Kruger National Park.
We're very excited about this new project. Animals need water and obviously the animals draw the tourists.
The mine company's ecological policy has helped reduce their discharge into the river, and they're now staunch allies of Fritz.
There's an incentive for the mining companies because some of the remaining pollution gets diluted by increasing the flow. There's an incentive for the Kruger National Park because they get clear water for potable purposes and for the animals. There's an incentive for the farmers because they get more water to irrigate. So there's incentives all the way from the source all the way down to the end user in the system.
Bhopal, notorious as the site of the world's worst industrial accident. In 1984, 20,000 people were killed by deadly gas escaping from a Union Carbide chemical plant. 20 years on, Bhopal is still a byword for corporate negligence. But since then, local authorities have cleaned up the city's environment and its watershed areas. Every year, India's Hindus celebrate the festival of Holi and the triumph of good over evil. After the disaster, Bhopal's local authorities faced their own demons, tackling contamination of the area's watershed and cleaning up the city's upper lake, which supplies 40% of its drinking water. A new sewage system is cutting solid waste problems, while roads and promenades were built as buffer zones to stop lakeside construction. The whole area has been redeveloped for recreation. The project is so successful, the Bauge wetlands was recently declared a conservation zone and Ramsar site, proving its international importance. With drinking water affected by both urban and rural pollution, attention is now being given to rural sources. Chemical fertilisers and pesticides, widely used on farms next to the lake, compose a major threat to the water and wetlands, particularly during the rainy season when farmland is submerged and agricultural chemicals may seep into the watercourse. One solution is to promote organic farming and encourage farmers to use readily available cow dung as fertiliser.
Major constraint that is there in veering people towards organic farming is, of course, that it is not a shortcut method. It does not yield very quick results. And when you are talking of people who are not big farmers, who are not landlords, who are eking out their living on a day-to-day basis, it means a lot to them as to what gives them instant monetary results and what can be a long-term solution.
In Neelbad village, Kamal Singh was one of the first farmers to switch to organic farming. He's already reaping long-term benefits.
जैविक खाद की खेती इसलिए बढ़ाई साहब कि हम जो खाद डालते हैं
I chose organic farming because of the economic reasons. If 1 quintal of organic manure is used in 1 acre of land, then for the next 5 years there will be a uniform production of crops. The chemical fertilizers may give instant results, but it will be harmful for the soil. You can see there are cracks forming in the soil, and the chemical fertilizers also harm our cattle.
The fertiliser Camel uses is prepared in ventilated brick structures. Layers of biomass and cow dung are placed on top of one another until the pit is full. It's then sealed with soil and cow dung to stop gases escaping. Each pit produces enough fertiliser for an acre of land and is ready to use after 3 months.
You can see a lot of difference in this crop and the crop on the other side, which I'll show you. In that crop, you'll find all the leaves have dried up, but this crop has green leaves. The green leaves you can see here, you won't be able to see in the other crop. I'll show you the field. You see the difference between the crops grown using organic manure and this crop where chemical fertilizers have been used. You can see it for yourself. See, all these leaves are dried up, the onions are small. The same amount of water has been used on both fields, but this one is drying up because we used chemical fertilizers, and the other field is green because we used organic manure.
Two beneficiaries of Bhopal's organic farming revolution are local stray cows and the inmates of the city jail. A selected number of prisoners are enrolled to work on land outside the prison walls that's been given over to organic farming. The inmates have gathered up abandoned cows to care for them and harvest their dung for organic compost. Initially, prisoners adopted 10 stray cows. Today they have nearly 1,000 head of cattle, giving litres of dung a day. The experiment has been so successful the jail is now used as a training centre. Local farmers are brought to the prison to see the benefits of organic farming and watch demonstrations. Organic composting is being adopted across the Upper Lake area and the results are encouraging. With better incentives, maybe poor farmers will switch to organic compost and pesticides rather than using chemical fertilisers and sprays which have the potential to poison both the land and water basin.
The chemical fertilizers have been checked to a great extent. As far as pesticides go, we are looking into the issue and trying to come out with remedial measures for organic pesticides also.
Here, below the rainforest of the Amboro National Park in Bolivia, two communities are trying to resolve their differences over a shared water source. Business and conservation work hand in hand as farmers downstream pay compensation to villagers upstream for cutting agricultural production and taking up bee farming. But this isn't just a story about bees and water. It's about building confidence between communities traditionally distrustful of each other so that no one ends up out of pocket and the cloud forest stays intact. In this fertile valley of the Los Negros River, farmers can make a good living growing vegetables. An irrigation system has drawn water from the higher reaches of the river for 70 years to ensure a year-round supply. But now there's not enough.
Esta agüita, gracias a esta agua, nosotros los negreños trabajamos, producimos hortalizas, producimos de todo para llevar a los mercados. Pero estamos sufriendo unos 20-25 años ya de que sufrimos la escasez de agua, la sequía, y por ende estamos produciendo menos que lo que producíamos antes.
Upstream, closer to the area of cloud forest so vital to water conservation, farmers clear land for vegetable production and feeding livestock. Over the past 20 years, growing numbers of farmers have moved to Santa Rosa. The number of farms has increased.
This is the community of Los Negros, and this is the community of Santa Rosa, and this is the watershed that we want to protect. The green area is the forest that is critical for water provision, and the red area are the areas behind cultivation right now. And we want to stop the farmer going up to the forest that is critical for water provision.
Farmers in Santa Rosa expressed an interest in beekeeping as a new source of income. So 2 years ago, upstreamers and downstreamers started talking to decide on a compensation scheme acceptable to all.
We negotiated and arrived at 10 hectares preserved for one bee box.
10 hectares is equivalent to about 7 football pitches. So far, Roberto Salguero has received 33 boxes. In return, he's agreed to preserve forest equivalent to almost 460 pitches.
This is the area I use for growing potatoes and fruit trees, and above is the area of forest I'm preserving, which is around 320 hectares.
The farmers were trained in beekeeping and honey harvesting. Now Serafin Carrasco is passing his knowledge on to others. They eat the honey and use it as a substitute for sugar. Any surplus is sold downriver and in the bigger towns and cities where rainforest honey is much prized. This Santa Rosa farmer wants to join the scheme, so a technician from Natura, the Bolivian Nature Foundation, maps out his land to see how much compensation in bee boxes he'll get. This is no arbitrary process. A GPS system is now used for mapping.
Lo primero que hacemos
The first thing we do is see the quality of the forest, see what state it's in, so we can decide on what basis he gets compensation.
If any of the forest on his land is partly cleared, the farmer will only get a percentage of the compensation. He might need to preserve perhaps 20 hectares of degraded forest to get one bee box. In future, compensation won't just be in the form of bee boxes.
Algunas personas están pidiendo alambre para encerrar su bosque.
Some people want barbed wire to put around their areas of forest, and others want plants like fruit trees to avoid having to clear land.
Con eso ya de evitar el chaqueo, ¿no?
Downriver in Los Negros, Delfan Rivero is overseeing his spinach harvest. He's a keen supporter of the scheme, but knows the process of building trust is still work in progress.
Para nosotros es muy importante tener un
comité de medio ambiente para que vigilen también si es verdad que conservan o no.
To convince farmers such a scheme could work, Natura got funding from overseas for its first year. This year, the local government is also helping out.
The most important result of this project until now is, first of all, the farmers are able to talk to each other. Secondly, the local government put money to carry on this project. And the third point is we have more than 1,000 hectares well protected. And finally, we are raising awareness in all the watershed to protect the water and to protect the forest.
As Los Negros produce is produced for the markets in the city of Santa Cruz, downstream farmers know one day they may have to dig into their own pockets to keep the scheme going.
Si ellos conservarían la agua arriba, ¿no? Los nacientes.
If they do conserve the top of the watershed, we will do all we can to somehow come to an agreement with them and give them compensation.
De darle recompensa a ellos.
The scheme needs to be tried and tested for a few years. Then, if farmers upstream are satisfied with their new source of income and become effective custodians of the forest and the water supply, farmers in Los Negros should be happy to invest some of their profits in keeping it this way.